Chapter 20. The gathering storm. The wind whipped through the shattered city, carrying with it a chill that seemed to seep into Kael's bones. The skyline was a jagged silhouette, the remains of towering structures half fallen, their once proud facades now crumbling under the weight of time. Below, the streets once paved with the promise of control were empty, save for the occasional flicker of static in the air, remnants of the old world's grip. Kael stood at the edge of a broken balcony, his gaze scanning the horizon. It was hard to tell if the world was on the brink of something new or something worse. Maybe both. In the wake of the system's collapse, everything was in flux, an unsettling limbo between destruction and rebirth. He didn't know what would emerge from this chaos, but he knew one thing. The battle was far from over. Beside him, Arya was silent, her eyes tracing the same horizon. She had become his closest ally, someone who understood the stakes better than anyone else. Her presence felt like a steady anchor in a world that was beginning to tilt off its axis. "We've sent the signal," Kael said, his voice low, almost to himself. "But what does it mean?" Arya glanced at him, a faint spark of something, hope, or maybe just resolve flickering in her eyes. "It means we've done the first thing right," she replied. "Now we wait." "But wait for what?" Kael's voice was edged with uncertainty. "The system's not just going to vanish. It'll evolve, adapt. The powers that be, they'll try to fix what's broken." Arya didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out over the ruins, her face unreadable. "Maybe. Or maybe the cracks are too deep now. Maybe they can't fix it anymore." Kael took a deep breath, the weight of everything pressing down on him. They had sent the signal, broadcasted their defiance to the lost ones, those who had been pushed into the shadows by the system's unyielding control. But now what? What came after the first step? He wasn't sure if he even wanted to know. "What if no one comes?" Kael asked, the question hanging in the air like a threat. Arya shrugged, but there was no real indifference in the motion. "What if they do? Either way, we've opened a door. And that's all we can do." A pause lingered between them, the uncertainty settling like dust around their feet. The city was still alive with the echoes of the past, but for how long? The remnants of the old system were like ghosts, lingering in the corners, refusing to fade. Every broken building, every shattered streetlight, felt like a memory trying to pull them back, trying to remind them of what had been. Kael turned his attention to the device in his hand. The signal had been sent, but it wasn't the answer. It was just the beginning of something that might be even more uncertain than the world they had just escaped. The static on the device flickered faintly, as if it were waiting for a response, for a sign that something or someone was listening. But who, exactly, were they calling? "Do you ever wonder if we've done the right thing?" Kael asked, the question more to himself than to Arya. She didn't flinch. Instead, she met his gaze, her expression soft but firm. "There's no right or wrong anymore, Kael. There's just what comes next. And if we're lucky, maybe we'll be ready for it." Ready for what? That was the real question. Kael didn't know what kind of future they were building, but he knew they couldn't go back. The system was already crumbling, and the world was moving, whether they were ready for it or not. The ground beneath their feet trembled, a faint, almost imperceptible vibration. Was it an aftershock of the collapse? Or was it something more? Kael couldn't tell, but something inside him stirred, a feeling of unease he couldn't shake. They had taken the first step, but that was only the beginning. What followed? Would the world rebuild itself in their image or in something darker? The fragments of the old world, the memories, the systems, they would always be there, lurking, waiting for a chance to take root again. The more Kael thought about it, the more he realized how fragile this moment was. They were standing on the edge of something, but the fall into the unknown could take them anywhere. He looked out over the ruins of the city, the broken skyline now softened by the evening light, and wondered, was this the beginning of the end or the beginning of something new? "I think we're more than ready for this," Arya said suddenly, her voice breaking through his thoughts. "We've seen what they've done, and we know what happens next, but we can't control everything. All we can do is move forward." Kael nodded, though he wasn't sure if he agreed. The future wasn't something he could predict, nor was it something he could control. It was a storm, waiting to descend upon them, and he didn't know whether he would weather it or be consumed by it. The signal had been sent. The lost ones had been called. But were they ready to answer? And more importantly, was anyone ready for what came after? Kael looked at Arya, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to feel something: dread, hope, uncertainty, maybe all at once. "We wait," Kael said, though the words didn't sound as certain as he'd hoped. The future was wide open, and yet it felt like a door that had been locked shut long ago. What happens after? He asked quietly. Arya didn't answer right away, her gaze drifting toward the horizon, where the night was slowly swallowing the last remnants of daylight. I guess we'll find out, she said. And in that moment, Kael realized that the world wasn't going to give him any answers. The next chapter was waiting to be written, but it wasn't up to him. It wasn't even up to Arya. It was up to everyone who had been left behind, everyone who had been forgotten. And no one, not even Kael, knew what they would do when they finally had the chance to rise.